Good evening, everyone. Well, tonight I'm going to be going through organising Matthew's goal cards for the year so that I know how much work he needs to get done to actually stay on track and to have all his work done for the year. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to get it all done, but you've got to start with goal or you're definitely not going to reach it. And it's important to know how much work you need to do each week. So this year, Matthew's in grade 6, and I'm not saying that I'm the expert and this is the be-all and end-all way of doing it, but this is the way I do it. My experience homeschooling, I've been homeschooling for 18 years now. I have a 24-year-old daughter who I started homeschooling her when she was in grade 2 and finished when she was in grade 10, which was basically when I started homeschooling Matthew. So yeah, long story. But yeah, so Matthew's doing grade 6 this year, and we're looking at his teacher's given him some workbooks to do. So technically I'm distance ed, not homeschooling. But the maths books we're using this year are the Maths Plus for the Australian curriculum. So Matthews didn't quite get it all finished last year, so I'll be adding in some of the grade 5 work as well. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to set up a spreadsheet through Google Sheets. So Google Sheets is a free spreadsheet to use. You don't have to pay for it, so it's really wonderful. So I'm going to show you how to actually set that up. So you go to the Google homepage and you just go to these 9 little dots here and go down to Google Sheets and wait for it to load, which sometimes that can take a little while. Well, it seems to have done it nice and quickly at the moment. Now I'm just going to set up and wait for it to load. So just pausing got a YouTube stream going so I can see if there are any comments. I do apologise if I don't see any comments that you might put in. So yeah, my main focus tonight is actually getting through and getting Matthew's schoolwork organised for tomorrow. So yes, kind of important to do at the moment. Actually, we started work last week, so he has actually already been doing some work. I just haven't had any rhyme or reason to what he's been doing. So I'll just open up a new spreadsheet and I'll start off with titling it Maths, which my fingers have gone and gotten a little bit ahead of themselves. So in his Maths, he's got 25 pages left in his workbook from last year, and there's 150 pages for him to do in his grade 6 works. So that's 175 in total, but I'm actually going to round that up to the closest 40. I'll step back a bit. There are 40 weeks in this year's school term and 4 terms, so I'm pretty sure there are 10 weeks in each term from what I can remember looking at the calendar, which I should actually be a little bit more careful than that. So I'm actually going to round this up to 200 so that we aim to get the work done earlier in the year so that he's not working right up until the last week, because that's just never fun, because you know things are going to go wrong. You know there are going to be challenges through the year. So you need to add in that little bit of wiggle room to give yourself some time and to give the child some time. So there's not too much stress, because the biggest problem facing homeschooling parents is an excessive amount of stress. And that's one thing we need to try to avoid as much as possible, which is part of the reason why having the goals, having a sheet so that I know, if for no other reason, how much work I need to aim to have Matthew doing each week, each term, each semester, and then for the year. So that way I know whether we're on track and when we need to push a little bit harder. So yeah, so we've got 20 pages that need to be done for the year. So I'm basically just going to divide that by 40. So I'm just being a bit slack. I'm going to use the Excel spreadsheet function. No, I totally did that wrong. So Matthew needs to do 5 pages a day, 5 pages a week, I should say, to get his maths done. So that's basically 1 page a day is the main goal. So that's really good to know. So then what I'll actually go through and do is actually have this set up so that I'm not sure if it works as well in Sheets. I know it works really well in Excel, but I can actually mark it off. No, it doesn't work. Excel works really nicely. So I can actually have sections to actually mark off that when he hits each milestone, so that it'll give both of us a chance to actually see, yeah, he's getting his work done. He's getting done everything that he needs to do, and it's not a big drama. So I won't go through that too much with that. So we'll look at I'll do the rest of that later. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's half the term. So I'm going to actually bring these down and down here. So I'm just going to do term at a time for now. 5, 50. So by halfway through the term, he needs to be up to page 50. Now, I nearly forgot here, didn't I? I need to actually incorporate who's doing his grade 6 work. So this second row actually won't be page 30. It will be, so those numbers are going to be completely different because he needs to finish off his grade 5 stuff. So there was 150 pages in here, so that will be 125, 130, 135, 140, 145. So I think he's actually, yeah, no, that'll be right. And then we'll just go from 1, 2, not 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So this is just term 1's. I'll change that to. That's just term 1 for maths. Then we'll look at English. So we're trying a different book this year because Matthew didn't quite go so well with the targeted English that he was using last year and has been using all the way along. So his teacher from last year has actually recommended that we use the Excel English workbook, the basics skills. She really likes this one for grade 6, so we're going to go with that one. So we'll have a look and see how many pages there are in this one. This isn't going to work for the older grades where there's a lot more assessment work and things like that. That'll be done completely different. This is totally just for book work. So this book's got 89 pages in it. So we'll round that up to 120. They need to do 3 pages a week. It's not 18, it's 15. That way I know he's on track. The other book he's got here is handwriting. So that's handwriting. Yes, I'm in Queensland, but my school recommends that we use the Victorian handwriting book. So this is called Targeting Handwriting, the student book, and it has 64 pages in it. I'm going to round that up to 80, so 2 pages a week. Yeah, I mean, nothing really over the top and stressful. And then you can have a goal card where you actually have it so that you've got the subject. Well, the other thing I like to do is I actually change the colour. I like having colours. Colours just seem to make things more fun. What colour would I do? Usually just science that colour. I'll do it purple. I do have a science book for him, but it's currently packed in a container, so I'm actually going to be using another option for his science. We're still having some challenges after moving, so I'm just going to do this goal card for the actual term. And make it so this will fit on one page nicely. Change the size of the columns. Nice. And I like to have everything centered just because I like things centered. Okay, yeah, you can't actually put symbols into slides, Google Slides for some reason, all by himself. You've got to actually have them set up in Docs or in Slides, but just it doesn't work in Sheets. I'm not sure why. That's just the way Google's made it. So I've gotten a star from that I made in Google Docs. And I'm going to make that a lot bigger because I like to actually put stickers on here. Hi, Bomber Steve. Good to see you here. You often flood fill the cells with coloured text with black. They contrast better than the white background. Yeah, they do. They do, but I'm going to be printing this, so I don't want to use that much black ink. Then I'm going to be printing this out for Matthew for his schoolwork. And hopefully these little stars will be big enough for me to actually put stickers on. Knowing me, I'll probably print it out multiple times. So then I've got, so it's English. I don't know why I looked back. I know what these subjects are. Hi, Liz Arkansas Bond. Good to see you here. Yeah, printing stuff. I don't like a lot of ink. And I like to have paper for Matthew to be able to work with. He just seems to work better with paper. Put that down a bit. So this is just a bit of a goal card for Matthew with his schoolwork. Nothing super fancy, just to help keep him on track and to help keep me on track more than anything. And give him a bit of a goal card. So somewhere where he can put his, so that he can tick off things and know that he's actually achieved them for the year. So I will grey out those so that they're not as, because they're more place markers more than anything else. It's probably not the most exciting thing to do, but some of the stuff that you got to do when you're homeschooling is make sure you're organised and you know what you're up to. Just to decrease the stress level on everybody. So, and obviously he's going to have more subjects to do with, I'm still working with his new teacher to find out what he actually needs to do. But that's basically the pages he needs to do for each subject. So that's the page number that he needs to end on by the end of that week. And if he gets to that page, well, when he gets to that page, he'll get to put a sticker on his little chart. Hi, Mike the Caveman, or is that Wild Edibles on Mike's phone again? Yep. Planning makes everything easier. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that Matthew's going to get all of his work done, because obviously last year he didn't. Life happened. It just got in the road and things got a bit messy. Mind you, I think it got in the road for everybody. Everybody had a messy year last year. It was just messy for different reasons. So yeah, that's basically what I do to try and help Matthew stay on track and make it so that I don't constantly feel like he's not doing enough work. Because probably one of the biggest challenges and hurdles that homeschooling mums face is feeling like they're not getting enough work done. Mama, I did not know you were an ex-primary school teacher. Is there anything you haven't done? You seem to be a bit of a jack of all trades, really. Yeah, I will definitely remember if I'm having problems to give you a yell. Because homeschooling is definitely a challenge. I mean, over 18 years of homeschooling, I've definitely faced my challenges. And probably the biggest challenge that I've had to overcome is actually accepting that I don't need to do it perfectly, that I can't do it perfect. It's not possible. And that the best thing I can do is to help my children to be the best them that they can be. So yeah, that's probably it, really. So Caveman can't use his phone. He's good with tablet, but that's a different channel. Long story. Teaching is never perfect. No, it's not. I mean, and it's not just a matter of you being the perfect teacher. It's also the student being the perfect student, and none of us are perfect. So we're never going to get that right. It's just not possible to actually be perfect. Perfection is a lie, really. The best thing I can find you can do is aim to do your best every day, and just work on improving and getting better every single day. There's not a lot else you can do, really. That's it, Bomber. You do the best to give them the chance to process and discover. And you're right, knowledge is absorbed and processed and found. You can't ram it into them. It's just not possible. It ends up, it's like my mum always used to say, if you try to force a cat. No, she tried to force a cat and she'd die. Mum never knew whether it was the cat or the woman that died. But if you've ever tried to force a cat to do anything, someone's going to get scratched to bits. It's not going to be pretty. So yeah, I know with Crystal, my 24-year-old, when I homeschooled her, I tried to look at what her strengths were and work within her strengths. Like, she is very gifted musically, and I aimed most of her schooling towards that musical arena. So looking into things that would help her from that perspective. Yeah, tap into their loves and their passions. That's absolutely right. So you tap into their loves and their passions. I mean, with Matthew, he struggles a lot with writing, but he's very creative with telling stories. He just doesn't like to actually write them down, but he's more inclined to type it out on the computer. So getting him to actually type that out really seems to help him. With Crystal, with her musical inclinations, I geared a lot of her project work towards things that had to do with music. So the history of music, or the history of different people within the music industry, and making sure that I really harnessed her musical abilities. She's completed her schooling. She's got her degree in music with a major in vocals, as much as I put most of my effort into piano. But most of the reason I chose piano with her was because I understood at the time anyway, I'm not a musician myself, I understood at the time that if they learn piano, that gives them the foundation that they can then go on to learn other things, which has actually worked beautifully for Crystal. She can pretty much pick up most instruments. She knows how to read, she knows how to write music. She's just got a real gift for musical abilities. I'll actually leave a link to her latest song that she's just released. Actually, I'll see if I can find it. It's called Drowning for the Gold. It's a really interesting song. I'm actually really... where is it? My typing skills are a little bit challenged. Start playing. But yeah, she's focused her music on trying to help other creatives to actually let out that creativity inside them and not get stuck by it, if that makes sense. It can be streamed on many different platforms. She's got it all over the place. So I see, Bommy is saying that handwriting is a dead skill. As long as you can write legibly, that is all you need. Yes and no. I mean, there are times, like in an exam, you can't have your keyboard, generally speaking. Generally speaking, you have to actually handwrite it. So it is important to have those handwriting skills. They are really vital. And I've also found too that your brain works differently when you're using paper and a pencil than it does when you're doing stuff on the computer. It just works completely differently. It activates different parts of the brain. Yeah, Steve, music is an amazing skill, and you can do it across so many different curriculum areas. And Crystal has such a gift with the music. I'd actually really love to hear what you guys all think about her song. I'm pretty proud of it, really. I'm actually really proud of her. She's amazing. And I mean, I homeschooled her from grade 2 to grade 10 as a single mum mostly. And it was a challenging few years, that's for sure. Yeah, well, I really prefer to write a lot of times. I do tend to use the computer a fair bit to try and keep track of information, especially if I need to have access to that information in multiple different sources. So yes, it's kind of interesting. Oh, your boys don't know how to sign their names. You should teach it sometime. How old are your boys, Wild? Oh, Lee, thank you. Yeah, I don't write as much as I would like to, and half of that is I just don't get time. So yeah, but yeah, that's basically all I've got tonight. It doesn't take too much to do a bit of planning on what Matthew needs to do for his schoolwork. So yeah, that's about it. And it's probably getting a bit late too, considering I've got Oh, don't ask how old the boys are. Okay, it's all good. I'll go back to that. She has a lovely voice. I'm yeah. It's interesting. I was very stressed whilst homeschooling Crystal, and I've probably learnt to really relax a lot more, and I'm not as high strung with Matthew. Um, Crystal and I butted heads a lot, and it created quite a few challenges. But I also know that she wouldn't be where she is today if I hadn't gone through the homeschooling process with her. Um, yeah. That's an interesting idea, Bomber. That's a really interesting idea. It would be good for the boys to learn some more nature studies type stuff. Um, and there's probably a lot of people in the homeschooling community that would find that very interesting to do some nature studies, especially with somebody that goes out and catches snakes. um, so yeah, that would be very interesting. And it can be really, really challenging teaching somebody that doesn't want to learn. And that's where you really need to hone in on where someone loves, what their gifts are. Like with Matthew, it'd be pointless trying to ram music down his throat. He does like music, but he's not musically gifted in that way. He's really got a bug for making videos and telling stories. He really, really likes doing that sort of stuff. I'm not necessarily saying he's good at it, but it's a skill that I think he can develop over time. So yeah. You got 3 snakes this weekend, Bomber. That's that's a lot of snakes. How many snakes do you usually get each weekend? So while there's a lot of variations in the schools in Canada, is there? I know here in Australia, when I was going to school, there was a lot of problems when people changed states because Victoria had a completely different curriculum than what we have in Queensland, and New South Wales was at a totally different rate as well, which meant some people could, if they moved from one state to the other, they could end up doing the same subject 4 times, especially if they moved backwards and forwards a bit. It made it very difficult. And and while that's the big thing, is really honing in on what the child likes and where their passions are and where their gifts are. And it's probably the biggest failing of the school system is it tries to use cookie cutters on everybody and tries to make everybody do the same thing. It's like if you try to test a goldfish to see if a goldfish can fly, they're going to fail miserably. Or if you test a bird to see if a bird can swim, unless it's a swan or a duck, it's going to have problems because they're not designed to do that. We all have different gifts and abilities, and I think it's really important to hone in on those gifts and abilities. But homeschooling is not for everybody. It's not easy. And while that sounds like you did a fantastic job, because there is science in everything, and like with Crystal, there is music in everything, and with Matthew, I can bring in videos with absolutely everything. So it's the trick with him at the moment is actually getting him to accept the fact that he needs to do drafts and that he's not going to get it perfect the first time every time. He really doesn't like going back and redoing work. So yeah. Um, so have you got there, Bomber? So school is like having a dog, cat, pig, goat, snake, horse, and a cow, and giving them a test to climb a tree. Some will do it, and none of them will do it the same way. And that's exactly right. And that's the biggest challenge that having the centralized school system is, because everybody's different. Everybody has different skills and abilities, and everybody approaches things differently. That is another big problem, Weil. I'm probably a little bit of a Hitler when it comes to computer games, and part of that is because I have the double degree in IT and multimedia with the award major in interactive entertainment and games programming. Ah, part of my degree, I was taught how to addict people to games. So I actually have a big problem with games. So I try to avoid them like the plague. um, so yeah, and I don't do anything with that part of my degree other than avoid gaming. Because it also it acts addictively in the brain. It releases dopamines. It's literally addicts you to the feel good sensation of doing stuff, and it makes it so that people are less likely to be able to cope with things like gardening, because gardening takes time. You don't plant a seed now and then pick up a fruit tomorrow. You've got to plant it, and then you've got to water it every day, and then you've got to tend to it, and you've got to weed it, and you've got to mulch it, and you've got to look after the plant. And our society is learning to be a microwave society, and the world doesn't work like that. The world is more of a slow cooker rather than a microwave. So it's a bit of a challenge. That's interesting, Bomber. Yeah, I I have the greatest respect for teachers. I think they've got an incredibly difficult job. Um, I find it hard enough with one, and I can focus on one and help him to be the best he can be. And it's I can't even imagine what it'd be like trying to coordinate 30 kids in a class. It'd be like trying to herd cats, and that would be a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. No games during school time. That's right. The games are a reward, and even then, I'm more inclined to let Matthew watch an educational video. One of the series that we really like at the moment are they're the Torchlighter series, and they're cartoonized biographies, basically, of people throughout history, like what are some of them? Oh, thinking Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Edison. Um, there are some really good educational DVDs out there, and Matthew absolutely loves them. And we found some great YouTube channels as well that he really likes watching. um, so yeah, that's really interesting. Um, yeah, Facebook games are a bit of a challenge. I must admit, I used to play Farmville a fairly large amount when I was just after I'd had Jonathan. No, just after I had Matthew, I should say. Had a fairly extensive Farmville thing there, but talk. I don't think I've even looked at it since Matthew was 2, so it's probably been about 8 years. Real gardening's much more fun. That's probably when we got the aquaponics, actually. Definitely time for you to go to bed, Bomber. I will chat with you another day. Thanks for popping on and visiting. It's really nice to see you, as always. Oh, so I just missed that. Okay, so one school my kids got honours, and the next school they were learning impaired. Isn't it interesting? And I heard a study that was done once where they took two classes, and one class was known to be the troublemakers, and the other class was known to really excel. And the start of the new year, somehow they mixed it up and they told the teachers that the ones that were really challenging were actually the really, really intelligent ones. And the ones that were really, really intelligent, the teacher was told that they were the dumb ones and not to expect too much. The fascinating part is, and I'm not meaning to downplay the teachers or anything, but by the end of the year, the troubled kids that the teacher was told they were actually excellent students, by the end of the year, that I think it was that by the teacher kept trying to, she just figured that there was something she was doing wrong and she wasn't reaching the kids, so she kept trying. And by the end of the year, those troubled kids were actually the ones that were doing the best. And conversely, with the excellent students that were, the teacher was told that they were the troubled kids, the teacher just didn't even bother trying. And by the end of the year, they were the worst kids. It's really interesting how that can happen. It's a really big challenge. The dyslexic. So while you're dyslexic and went to a good school, and your hubby went to a crappy school with big difference in teachers that care and learn from the kids. Yeah, I actually have dyslexia as well. It makes computer programming quite difficult. They transpose numbers and letters all over the place. Coding was a nightmare. Although it didn't actually take me that long to actually work out when I'd actually done a transposing error. But it does just go to show that whatever challenges you've got, if you really choose to, if you've got a goal and you're prepared to work at it, it is possible to find out how to overcome your challenges and to solve the problems. And I'm still learning everything that I learnt on that side of things when it comes to the homestead as well. So even though, so at the moment I've got the whiplash injury, so I can't sit at the computer for an extended period of time and all that sort of stuff. Hi, Ed from Southern Woodworking Homestead. Nice to see you. So even though now I can't do a lot of the things I wanted to do in the garden, it's forcing me to actually look outside the square and think out square and think, okay, so I can't do this. How can I do it? And I apply that with the homeschooling as well. I look at it going, okay, if the child's not understanding this, how can I help them to understand it? Like I know with Crystal, with her maths, she really struggled with fractions. She found it very difficult to understand the concept. So I remember having an argument with her one day. She was telling me black and blue that 2/3 was the same as 2 1/3. I'm like, how are we going to get around this? So I actually got a couple of Tim Tams out and I chucked the Tim Tam into thirds and said, okay, you think 2 1/3 is the same as 2/3? This is 2/3, you can have this, and I get the 2 1/3. She never mixed that up again. She understood it, and it probably would have worked just as well if I'd used apples, but Tim Tams just tasted nicer. And I was having a bad day, and I was trying to make things a little bit lighter. Yeah, and that was the one thing with the dyslexia. I learnt ways around it. When I was programming, I learnt what the error messages looked like when it was a typo from me, when I'd actually made a spelling error. So I got quite good at being able to find that error and being able to fix it. So yeah. But that's basically me done for tonight. If anyone's got any questions on homeschooling, I'm happy to try and answer them. But yeah. The kitchen works great. There are so many things you can do in the kitchen that can help teach your kids things, that they can learn skills that help them to be able to progress in whatever area they're in, because everybody needs to eat. That's just a basic function. You need to be able to know how to cook. You need to be able to prepare a meal, ideally one that you've grown from your own garden. I always get excited when I manage to make a meal that I've actually grown the entire meal. At the moment, the only one I seem to be able to do that with is scrambled eggs. But that's probably because I've got chickens, goats, and parsley and chives. But it's all good. But yeah, and as much as I would love to stay and chat with you all, it is getting quite late. It's 11:45 here. I'm not quite sure what time it is over there at the moment. And I'm guessing it's probably around 7 a.m.-ish, maybe. I'm not a very good walking time converter, I'm afraid. How's things going over at your place, Ed? Well, yeah, I was hoping, I was kind of figuring that this time of year people are trying to get their schooling started, and there are a lot of people homeschooling now that were not previously. And as much as I don't necessarily think I'm an expert on homeschooling, there are a few tricks that I've learnt over the years. And I mean, every year is different. That's the one big bonus that school teachers have. They generally just stick with the one grade level. As a homeschooler, especially if you've got multiple children, you're doing multiple grades and you're doing different grades each year. But you get to learn with the child too. I mean, and yes, I've taught Matthew how to read, but now teaching Jonathan how to read it's a completely different ballgame because he is a completely different child. He has a very different learning style to Matthew. With Matthew, he really, really struggled. He wanted to learn to read, but there was just something not quite clicking into place, and he couldn't handle. Oh, it's 9 a.m. in Ontario. Sorry, I pronounced that wrong. Cool. So with Matthew, I made some little books where I'd actually look at his sight words that he had to go through, and because he got bored with doing the cards. He's a very active child. So one of the things that I did with him, and it wasn't that anyone told me, I was just racking my brain trying to think of what I was going to do, and I was praying, going, God, help, please help me. I'm struggling to work out what to do with this child and how to help them. And I just got this inspiration to actually make up some little books using well, it wasn't entirely inspiration. His teacher at the time said the best sight words books were ones that had the same 4 words each page and then changed 1 word each page, and that there was a picture on the page that gave an idea as to what that 1 word was that they didn't know. So what I actually did was, like, the first one was I am in my. So I basically took pictures of Matthew where he was in a bucket, he was in his bed, he was in his castle, he was in something else, and he was in something else, and he was in something else, and made this little book with it, which he's actually misplaced at the moment, and I need to find it so that I can go through them with Jonathan, because Jonathan's going to love it because he's got pictures of Matthew in it. And anything with Matthew is exciting. Jonathan just thinks it's the best thing ever. The only thing better than Matthew is if it's got crystal in it. So he is a big fan of his brother and sister. It probably comes with being the youngest in the family. But yeah, anyway, that's I'll do another live sometime on how I actually made those books up and some of the sight words that I used. Yeah. But yeah, so I hope everyone's found this helpful, and I'll catch you on the next live. You have a great day. I hope it all goes well and that you have a good week. And if you are struggling with any homeschooling issues, please feel free to put a comment down in the description. And if I can do anything to help, I will. If it's something that I've come across. And over 18 years, it's not just a matter of what I've come across, it's also over the family and friends that I've connected with as well. So, yeah. Anyway, you have a great day, and we'll catch you next one. Bless you. Have a great one. Thanks for joining, guys. It was really nice to have you on board tonight. It was nice to not be here on my own. Have a great one. Bless you. Bye, Lee. Bye, Wild. Bye, Ed.